o'clock in the Common Council Chambers, City Hall.
But thank you.
Tuesday, August 26th. Call to order, roll call. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item C, identify possible conflicts of interest. Seeing none, moving on to item D, public comment period correspondence. At this time, I'll recognize persons in attendance wishing to address the council. Upon recognition by me, persons may address the council first stating their name and address. Comments will be limited to no more than 5 minutes, and persons are asked to be respectful when addressing the council. No action will be taken regarding items not on the agenda. However, the council will take comments from the public under advisement. Please note that council members will not respond to your comments or questions. Our citizen this evening, Bill Penker.
Good evening, Bill Penker, 600 Sycamore Avenue. My comments will focus on 3 items from your meeting on August 12. As a longtime government watcher, I applaud the 8 people who came forward at your last meeting to give us additional background on a controversial issue. Probably unknowingly, their comments intersected with your upcoming strategic planning sessions. Unknown to some, perhaps forgotten by others, the Common Council, albeit in a broad sense, has already addressed their concerns. And I refer you to Section 2 of the Comprehensive Plan. And in subsection 2.5, we find vision and mission statement, values and goals of the Common Council. And reading in part, as part of the strategic planning process, the Common Council has adopted the following mission and vision statement, as well as values and goals that will serve as the framework for the development of the Council's new strategic plan. That, of course, dates back to 2017. It is the mission of the city of Marshfield to provide a fiscally sound, family-oriented community with a full range of housing, business, cultural, educational, and recreational opportunities in a safe environment for residents and visitors. We will be a city of diverse interests and values. That is the vision. We celebrate our differences, engage all generations, and seek to create a feeling of belonging. We are imaginative in addressing the evolving needs of our community, and we ensure the security and sense of well-being of our residents through responsive and proactive policies. There are more. I said I was reading in part. Next month, as you develop your strategic plan, I urge you to review that section, subsection 2.5, since it was to be incorporated in a previous plan. And as I just noted, a mission of the city is to provide a full range of housing. The redevelopment plan for the shoe factory seems to meet that mission, and it is an innovative approach to address a community need. It also meets a goal of historic preservation. On the other hand, is what some are calling rent-controlled housing the best and highest use of that building? And does it create a bold anchor for what should be a premier urban renewal project, the 2nd Street corridor? And in addition, is the redevelopment a catalyst for change, or is it simply an apartment building? Thank you very much.
Any other citizen comments? Any other citizen comments? Seeing no other citizen comments, we'll go on to item E, approval of minutes for the August 12th, 2025 meeting. Motion by Alderman Dellis, second by Alderman Giles. Any questions, comments? Seeing none, please vote.
Mrs. Spiros?
Yes.
Mr. Rigel?
Aye.
That motion passes. Thank you. Item F, staff updates.
Thank you, Mayor. I have 2 this evening. The first one, I'd like to call up Justin Casperson, our Parks and Recreation Director, to give a report on something going on at the 2nd Street Community Center.
I think some of you are aware of this, but I don't know if all of you are aware of it, but over the last few months, Park and Recreation staff, as well as facility management, city inspection, wastewater, Marshfield utilities, and plumbing companies have been working together to identify a water leak in the basement of the Second Street Community Center. Last week, we probably exhausted all resources and now kind of take next steps. We've rerouted water lines, the water still leaked. We did pressure testing on the lines, still leaked. We shut off the water to the building twice, once for the fire suppression and once for the main water, and it still leaked. We had Marshfield Utilities involved. They've did leak detection test as well as water test samples on it, and identified it to not be necessarily a source water from the city, but not storm sewer or rain runoff. Either way, everything's been exhausted, and now we're at a point of kind of physically having to excavate basement walls and floor to kind of find out what is causing this leak. It's going to be kind of a treasure hunt approach because we can't identify the source. So we're probably going to have to come to the council for some sort of budget resolution to identify a funding source. This could cost up to $10,000 to $20,000 depending on the magnitude. The walls themselves are solid block walls, so they're solid block walls. It was built in the 1950s, remodeled in the 1960s, so we're going off some pretty archaic plans themselves. But we've exhausted all resources, staff and all the people involved, from utilities, inspection, you name it. Don't really know what else to do next except for ripping up the floor and the walls. We're going to try just doing it into one bathroom down there. It's a small area that we can adjust as we go along, but we don't want to rip up everything, so we're going to go slow but surely. If you want to look at the situation, if you're interested in knowing what's going on down there, feel free to stop by or give me a call, or feel free to send me an email or phone calls.
Thank you.
For the second update, I want to come over here and I want to get very excited in front of all of you because I think all of staff is. We have gone nearly 3 years without a planner on staff, and I have an exciting announcement tonight. We have one. We're excited about him. His name is James Lieben. Comes to us from the Milwaukee area, has some great experience and a great background. We've enjoyed at staff level getting to know him in the last couple of days. I've gotten to spend a pretty fair amount of time with him, and I think he brings a lot to the table. So I just asked him to give a really snippet about himself and what brings him here and what he's done in the past. James?
Thank you, Steve. Good evening. It's nice to meet everybody finally. Again, my name is James Lieben. I'm born and raised in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and I've had a pretty diverse background up until this point in the private sector. So I have a bachelor's degree in architecture from Iowa State University, a master's degree in urban design from the University of Colorado, Denver, and a plethora of professional experiences ranging from architecture and municipal recreation centers all the way to master planning with my last position at the firm called Rinka in downtown Milwaukee, working in communities just like this one to leverage and make wonderful places and really learn more about the planning issues. So I'm very thrilled to be here and to be transitioning finally to the public sector, and I will do absolutely everything in my power to serve the community.
Welcome, James. Thank you. Next up, mayor's comments. I just have one comment on behalf of Dr. Shukla. He would like to extend a huge thank you to Justin, the Park and Rec Department and Forestry, for an amazing weekend. They certainly enjoyed themselves. Justin, thank you so much for whatever you guys did for Dr. Shukla and his family. He caught me in the hallway the other day at the clinic and asked me to bring that forth, so thank you. Item H, council comments. Item I, city administrator's update.
Thank you, Mayor. This really plays to the comment made by Bill Penker moments ago. We do have the first of the 2 strategic planning meetings on Saturday, September 6th. The second one will be on the 20th. Both of them will be from 9 o'clock to 3 or 3:30 in that range. And I want to kind of trumpet this one a little bit loudly because it's been very hard, as you know, getting a quorum based on all the schedules. You guys have busy lives and those types of things. But what we have for both these days is a fairly fair, to some degree, quorum. So if you find out that you're not going to be able to make it for some reason, let me know as soon as you know. If you had said previously before that one or both of these dates do not work for you, but it turns out that they do, please let me know that. We've got a facilitator coming from Madison, and I want to make sure that we honor his time and hopefully have a great couple of sessions as we try to plan for the future of the city. Thank you.
Item J, reports from commissions, boards, and committees. Seeing none, consent agenda, meeting minutes and reports. Motion by Alderman Varsho, second by Alderman Fire. Alderman Tompkins.
Thank you. I would like to pull K10 from the consent agenda.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Okay, sorry. Okay. Please vote.
Mrs. Sparrows?
Yes.
Mr. Rigel?
Aye.
That motion carries. Alderman Tompkins?
Thank you. So in that meeting, there was a budget resolution 25-081, and it was basically just to balance the books for the Adler Trail. Everyone's been paid, but if that's not approved, it sounds like it just turns into sort of messy accounting, which is noticed by our auditors and external financial people who look at our books. So I'm just asking that we would pull that and then vote as a council on that at our next council meeting. So that would be my motion.
And is there a second to that motion? Second by Alderman Rigel. Any other questions, comments? Seeing none, please vote.
Mrs. Sparrows?
No.
Mr. Rigel?
Aye.
That motion passes. Item M, presentation, organizational structure reports for economic development presented by Kristen Fish-Peterson, Redevelopment Resources.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing me to share this piece of work that I've been working on for the last couple of months. My name is Kristen Fish-Peterson, and I'm with Redevelopment Resources based in Madison. I've had a significant amount of experience with the city of Marshfield over the years, and I'm happy to be here tonight to present this work. I was asked to conduct an organizational structure report. I'll give you a high-level summary. The current system for economic development staff is fragmented, and the department has been understaffed for quite a while. So the short story is I'm recommending hiring 2 dedicated staff members and then changing the name of the Community Development Authority and establishing a redevelopment authority. This will achieve better coordination, streamlined strategy, and stronger economic growth opportunities for the city. How I conducted my research is I met with each of the 6 entities on the screen. I met with staff from the city of Marshfield. I've met with Marshfield Utilities, Main Street Marshfield, Visit Marshfield, Mackey, and the CDA. I wanted to ask each entity how they contributed to economic development in the city of Marshfield, and a little bit about their work, and to get more familiar with each entity, even though I was pretty familiar already. I understand what Main Street entities do and what tourism entities do and what CDAs do. Long time experience with Mackey, so I understood pretty much the landscape, but I needed to speak to those entities and ask them specific questions, so I spent some time doing that. Currently, there are some gaps in your economic development department staff. You have no director. There's no dedicated economic development staff, and there's limited coordination across all those 6 organizations. So strategic planning capacity has been hampered, and it's just somewhat fragmented. Everybody does their own job really well, but as far as coordinating any of it, it's lacking. So I made a recommendation to hire an economic development director who would lead strategy. manage the economic development side of tax increment financing, do marketing, oversee planning and zoning, and then an assistant or a number two economic development and planning coordinator who would work with project management, planning, and outreach. I'm not exactly sure how James fits into this mix, but
And I apologize. You walked into this room tonight not knowing that, right?
yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I in the busyness of life and the craziness, we actually signed him on like about a week and a half ago. And I totally apologize. We can
Oh,
talk
that's okay.
about how that fits into the model going forward.
That's okay. It's good. I'm glad he's here, and I'm glad there's somebody else in that department right now. That's awesome. So in the report, I detail some options for funding these positions. Of course, you have your budget, where the positions might have been hosted in the past, their salaries. Sometimes communities use a portion of TIF administration funds to fund positions of people who will be working to recruit businesses to TIF districts. When I worked for the city of Wausau, a portion of my job was paid for by room tax dollars, but that was many years ago when room tax could be used for economic development in general. So if the city has a portion of room tax dollars that is not allocating directly to tourism, if there could be some of it dedicated to that, that might be a possibility. And then there may be, if there are excess revenues from the utility that they put into the fund that the city has for that, I think it's the 205 fund, that could be a possible source as well. So I want to talk a minute about CDAs, RDAs, and housing authorities. In the state of Wisconsin, and I will say, back when Jason Angel was here in the Economic Development Department, we talked about economic development authorities. Minnesota has an EDA model, and the state of Wisconsin does not have that in its statutes right now. So we looked into that. We looked into the EDA model way back when I was working with the EDB and Jason Angel was here several years ago. But the state has housing authorities and redevelopment authorities. And then later in time, to create efficiencies, they came up with CDAs. So that was where the state allowed you to combine the functions of housing and development and redevelopment into a community development authority. Unfortunately, communities can't have CDAs and housing authorities, but they can have an RDA and a housing authority. So my recommendation is to transition the CDA to a housing authority. Right now, the CDA currently administers public housing, and they do it very well. They are a well-oiled machine in that respect. They serve the community very well, managing the public housing that they manage. They have a strong operation, but they're not utilizing all their powers as a CDA. This recommendation would not create any change for them other than a change of their name. It would not take any power away from them. It would not change how they operate currently. It just would change their name. And they can maintain business as usual. So the Community Development Authority is a separate body politic for carrying out, or excuse me, that should say Redevelopment Authority is a separate body politic for carrying out, oh, no, this is a CD, I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. So what a CDA has, this is the combined statute where it talks about it being a separate body politic for the purpose of carrying out blight elimination, slum clearance, urban renewal programs and projects and housing. So this is the entity that can do both. However, the RDA can do everything except housing. So an RDA would be an independent body to coordinate efforts and coordinate economic development efforts and redevelop property. The CDA would become a housing authority that would create that opportunity to create the redevelopment authority. And that can happen with a resolution from the city council. All that's needed is for you to say, the CDA is now a housing authority, and then a separate resolution that would say, we are creating a redevelopment authority. The membership would be mayor appointed, and right in the statutes it says their members should be people with professional skills like bankers, real estate agents, attorneys. When we established the redevelopment authority in Watertown, Wisconsin, we had 2 bankers, an attorney, a realtor, and a pastor, which is kind of a cool story I'll save for another day. But that, and in Mount Horeb, I'm working with that group, and they have banker, realtor, and a few other professionals on that body. So we want people with business acumen and business experience. The executive director of the recommended Marshfield Redevelopment Authority would be your economic development director. That staff person could also serve as the executive director in the capacity of the RDA. Eventually, when that RDA was up and running and had its own revenue sources, they could even pay a portion of that person's salary. That's what happens in the city of Wausau and other larger municipalities that have established redevelopment authorities. So their powers and responsibilities would include redevelopment and planning and redevelopment projects or development projects. They could borrow money, issue bonds, pursue grants. They could acquire and redevelop blighted property. They could manage property sales and leases. They could do strategic planning for economic development, and just be another set of eyes on the economic development function of the city. As far as the partner organizations, those roles would I'm recommending that they all stay the same. After talking with each of these, each of the related entities all do what they do very well. And so I'm not recommending any changes there, but I think that there should be regular touch points with each of these entities by that economic development staff person to coordinate their activities. And maybe there's a biannual meeting that they host with everybody together so they all know what everyone's doing. This timetable doesn't have a start date or an end date. This is just an estimation of how long it could take to do some of this stuff. So if in the next 3 months or so there's funding approved and you begin the hiring process and then 4 to 6 months from now, or over the next 4 to 6 months, you can establish the redevelopment authority. They can then develop a strategic plan, hire that second position if that's not James, and then launch their initiatives and get right on going. So this isn't a hard and fast timeline, it's just kind of an estimated time horizon of how things could take place. As far as a budget snapshot is concerned, I estimate that you would have staffing at $150,000 to $200,000 annually, including benefits. The redevelopment authority won't need a lot of money to start out, but they will need some, and that could come out of TIF increment if there was increment available. When we started the RDA in Watertown, we needed to buy an insurance policy for the board, directors and officers insurance policy. We needed a few other things like that cost a little money. Create a bank account for the RDA, that kind of thing. And then future revenue, they could own property, they could secure grants and loans and other contributions, and then be their own self-sustaining entity. So in conclusion, I'm recommending dedicated staff and the creation of the redevelopment authority. That will just set the city up well for coordinated and organized economic development efforts in the future. Are there any questions?
Alderman Dellis?
Hi, thank you. You mentioned that you had talked to and interviewed the CDA, and I know you gave a presentation on them yesterday. Can you tell me what your take on their opinion on this would be?
Sure, I did present to their board meeting yesterday, and it feels like it's change to them, and change brings uncertainty. I assured them that this is merely a name change. It doesn't take away any of their powers or any of the things they're doing now. None of that would change. They were guarded and a little defensive, but I understand that. We're recommending a change to their organization. When I talked to Carol Kerper a few weeks ago, I mentioned that we did this change in Watertown. They had a CDA. And I worked with them for over a year to train them on things like TIF and development deals and how it would look to do a large-scale redevelopment project. And I offered for them to talk to that housing authority director because we did the same thing in Watertown. They had a CDA. and it was doing housing really well, but it wasn't doing anything else. And that board was uncomfortable doing anything else. So we turned them into a housing authority, and everything moved on as normal for them. And then we created that redevelopment authority. So, so the meeting yesterday, there were some comments of just being concerned over loss of power or loss of ability, but I tried to assure them that that is not the case.
Alderman Tompkins?
Thank you. So one question, we do help fund the position that is with Mackey, and our hope is that that position would also sort of coordinate some of the economic development. So I'm not totally seeing that in your plan. You put Mackey under helping with retention of workers. What else did you put? It was sort of like workforce.
They do business retention and expansion, which is the regular visits to businesses in Marshfield to see how they're doing, which is a great function for them because a lot of those businesses are members, but they also meet with non-members. They also do spend some time and energy on marketing the community outside to site selectors or other entities, other businesses to recruit businesses in. They also do what I would consider to be the workforce development function, where they coordinate with training programs and other things to help workforce development, which is hard. That's a hard economic development task to undertake, I think. So they do serve at least those three functions.
And they're also helping with, responding to the RFQs or the RF.
Right.
So in a way,
under the marketing bucket. Yep.
Right. So in a way, the reason we're funding them is that we feel like they're doing a role that the city can't do. But do you see that coming under sort of the staff of City Hall? Because we're paying for part of that salary. So, is it better spent having that as one of these two employees that you're, because budget's always going to be an issue, so.
No, for all the reasons that you funded Mackey in the past for them to keep that somewhat at arm's length, and business is done, business has reasons for having confidentiality and things like that, those BRE visits and some of that, that's all good. And everything they're doing now, I think, is great, and it's appropriate for them to do that work.
Okay. And then if you've helped Watertown sort of transition and go through this, did you charge consultant fees for that, or how did that work?
So how that evolved was we created a downtown and riverfront redevelopment plan for them in 2014. And they said, we don't have anyone to implement this. And we said, well, you need to hire some staff. And until they were ready to do that, they hired me 60 hours a month to implement the plan that we created. And they kept me on for 7 years. And that's when we we tried to work with the CDA. I tried to train them for over a year, and we saw that not happening. So we created the RDA, and then they said, would you be our executive director? And I was like, okay. So I did that for, that a period of time. And then how my contract ended is they ended up hiring a full-time person eventually.
All right. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Alderman Fire?
I serve on the CDA, and we were involved with this yesterday, and we heard her report. The concerns from the CDA is they have the ability to do exactly what this will do. The only problem we've ever had through the years, we couldn't get any staff to do it. And we've helped with blighting, like at the clinic. We did that with the clinic. We helped build the new bank, and we've done quite a few things. The only reason we don't get a chance to do any more of this is we don't have any staffing to do it. We could handle it, but we never had any staff. So that's the problem we're going to have. And we're not against change. I mean, if we have to do this, we'd live as a housing authority. But we could handle the same thing you're proposing here, technically, without any problems at all. And Andy Keel and Dave LaFontaine will tell you that right from the beginning, that there's nothing you're going to present that we couldn't do if we had people to do it.
Alderman Dellis?
If you don't mind, Sarah, could you come up? Can I ask you a couple questions? Thank you. Sarah, what are you doing in economic development right now at Mackie?
So I did just present that just a little while ago. I'm focused on business retention, business attraction, entrepreneurial growth. I am also presenting to you guys in a couple weeks, so I'll just make this really brief. Those are the main three things that I'm working on. I want to really focus on bringing more businesses in, so the entrepreneurial growth is a strong thing, supporting small business, filling vacancies on Main Street. That's kind of the main topics. We're trying to get a restaurant is a huge, we hear a want for a restaurant. So retail, restaurant, experiential spaces. So, I mean, I can present longer when I have my presentation in front of me, but yeah, I think we're focused on small business growth. I'm going to apply for a what is it, WEDEC, Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation grant. So that'll be 100% pass through to small businesses. So it's a competitive grant. So that's what I'm working on right now. And so long term, the three things: business retention, attraction, entrepreneurial growth is main thing.
Thank you. Sorry to put you on the spot here.
Any other questions for Kristen? Rebecca or Andy? Okay, they both are shaking their heads no. Kristen, thank you for the presentation. Thank you for all the work that you did. We appreciate it very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Item N, request to approve budget resolution number 19.2025, Certified Sites Grant, presented by Jennifer Solinsky, Finance Director.
Good evening. Back in 2024, the city decided to create a promotional video to market the Yellowstone Industrial Park, which is located within our TIF district number 12. This was a collaboration between Wood County, Mackay, and the city of Marshfield. The city's contribution was our own communications department created and produced the video. It was funded half by Wood County and half by Mackay. We normally make a contribution to Mackay for this type of activity, and they in turn paid us back essentially $2,500, which was half of the cost. At the time of the 2025 budget, all of these things weren't known, so this budget resolution is really procedural in nature to make all of the appropriate transfers between the different funds that are necessary. So with that, I would ask approval of Budget Resolution 19-25.
We have a motion by Alderman Tompkins, second by Alderman Fire. Any questions, comments?
Mrs. Stellis, did you want to amend?
No. That's okay. Seeing none, please vote.
Mrs. Spiros?
Yes.
Mr. Rigel?
That motion passes. Thank you. Item O, recommend to approve budget resolution number 21-2025, funding transfer CIP 107-8224 to 107-8225, presented by Jennifer Solinsky, Finance Director.
Back in 2023 or 2024 or so, the laws regarding borrowing for municipalities changed in that it made it more favorable to borrow long-term notes. It essentially extended the life from 10 to 20 years, which essentially eliminates the need for us to borrow bonds. One of the advantages of notes that bonds does not have is that if you underspend a project, you can simply reallocate that to another project that you have going, which is what we are proposing to do this evening. A 2024 project, which was an IT project, came in under budget, so it's all finished. By $16,000. And we also have a 2025 project that normally would have been on the debt schedule, but our debt schedule was already full, so we had to fund it with general fund dollars. By simply transferring that leftover IT project money to this computer purchase project, we're able to reduce the amount of general fund dollars, which are essentially tax levy dollars, and preserve those within the general fund for something else. It should also be noted that IT has completed now 2 projects under budget by a little over $18,000. And since it's our goal to kind of preserve those tax levy dollars in the general fund, we're recommending repurposing those loan proceeds from a prior project that we no longer need. So with that, I would ask approval of Budget Resolution 2021-2025.
We have a motion on the floor by Alderman Varsho, second by Alderman Tompkins. Any questions, comments from the council? Seeing none, please vote.
Mrs. Spiros?
Yes.
Mr. Rigel?
That motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Report on decisions by Wood County Seed Committee on grant request submitted by the City of Marshfield. Discussion of options regarding the proposed projects presented by Steve Barg, City Administrator.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, as you know, we've applied now, I think maybe 4 years in a row, some part of the city for money from the Wood County under the Economic Development Grant Program. We use the term SEED a lot. The committee that first receives and reviews these requests is called SEED. It's the Conservation, Education, and Economic Development Committee. They ultimately make recommendations to the Operations Committee of the county, and then finally the Wood County Board, as part of approving their annual budget in November, makes the final call. So this year, with the approval of the council back in late June, we submitted 2 applications for the SEED Committee's consideration. One was for the Building Revitalization Grant Program. Just a little bit of a reminder that we've had for many years what used to be called the Facade Grant Program, if you recall. And then a couple of years ago, after changing it to the Facade Grant and Interior Conversion Program, we turned it around and said, let's call it the Building Revitalization Grant Program. You say, what's in a name? The main thing is that you can do exterior improvements, but also under some conditions, interior work is possible as well. Improves the tax base, improves the appearance of our community, and good for the downtown business vitality. So what we were asking for this year was $25,000 from the committee. The council back in late June had committed $25,000 of city funds for a total of $50,000 if we got the county grant. In past years, we've oftentimes allocated up to $60,000 or $70,000 to this program. That was through 2024. That would oftentimes cover 3 or 4 projects. The reason, again, that I didn't put any money in for 2025 for the Building Revitalization Grant Program was simply because we're supporting the West 2nd Street corridor plan and have to pay the consultant and have some other ancillary fees. So that's where the money for 2025 was dedicated to. I was hoping it would be only a 1-year pull-out from the money for the program. While you look ahead at the second phase, we're going to continue to be working with Vanderwall on the 2nd Street corridor implementation. So we're going to have costs there, and we really don't have a lot of money to put toward that program. So again, my hope was $25,000 from the city, $25,000 from the county. The county funds are getting harder and harder to get. There are more people requesting every year, and it seems like even fewer dollars as they're trying to hone in the amount that they have to give. This year they had about $1.15 million in requests, and they can only give out about $325,000. So actually, they're only providing funding for about 28% of the dollars requested. About one out of every $4 they're able to fulfill. This year for the Building Revitalization Grant Program request, they are allocating $8,000 as their recommendation to go to the Operations Committee and Wood County Board. And I have no reason to believe, given how tight funding is, that either one of those bodies will increase it from $8,000. So we're probably looking at total $8,000 with our $25,000 committed by the council in late June. We would have $33,000 to work with. Now the council may be like me and be a little bit deflated that the county didn't fulfill the whole thing. But my recommendation would be that we go ahead and if we get the $8,000, continue with that, add the $25,000 that the council had committed, and go with the $33,000 amount for 2026. That would probably do, I would hope to think we could do maybe 2 project, assistance with that. The projects vary. Sometimes we get larger projects, sometimes we get smaller projects, but an oftentimes award, since I've been here, is maybe $15,000 to $20,000 per project. So that would be the hope, to be able to help 2 downtown buildings get some work done. Meanwhile, on the other side, the other application that we made was for historic district signage. You may recall that In the previous year, we had applied for money to put 3 signs up, and we got that money from the county. Back then, there was not a matching requirement. They installed the matching requirement dollar for dollar for 2025, or actually for the 2026 awards being made in 2025. So with the $5,000 we got from the county, we were able to install 3 new signs marking our historic district. The total we wanted to do was 8. So the goal is to try and get the remaining 5 done in 2026, and then we'll be done putting all the signs up that the Historic Preservation Commission has targeted to be able to mark clearly all those districts. And every one of those signs, if you've seen them, has a brochure holder with brochures that people can pick up, and they do in large numbers, walk around, bike around, whatever, and be able to see what they're looking at, to know what the historic buildings are in our community. Anyway, how it went down this year, if you recall, just for a little reminder, the Finance, Budget, and Personnel Committee heard this request for $4,675, dollar for dollar match to go with this grant application back on June 19th. The committee voted to recommend council to allocate the $4,675. But by the end of the conversation, the committee mentioned that, maybe Visit Marshfield would be interested in participating. Maybe they could cover that, the matching funds. And so ultimately, before it got to the council, it went to Visit Marshfield's board, and they were very gracious, and they did allocate the $4,675. So in the application that I filed to the county in the early part of July, I showed the match as being the $4,675 from Visit Marshfield to get $4,675 from the county to be able to have the $9,350 for the remaining 5 signs. Ultimately, the county is looking at these very tough critiquing now because of the competition, and they're looking for things that have a very direct economic impact, and they did not see fit to include that in their recommendation, unfortunately for us. So right now what we have is the $4,675 offered as a match by Visit Marshfield based upon the $4,675 being granted by the county. We could withdraw and look to another year to try and do the project and wrap up the historic signage, or we could take up now or at a future meeting the Finance, Budget, and Personnel Committee's recommendation to provide the 50% match and complement Visit Marshfield's money and get the remaining signs completed and installed. So my recommendation, and I realize that, again, this may be overridden, even the $8,000 may be reviewed and not funded by the county board ultimately in November. I think it probably will be. Tough decisions have been made by the SEED committee. My recommendation would be that the city moves forward with both projects using the $8,000 that is being allocated for the Building Revitalization Grant Program, partnering it with the 25 that the city had already said they would commit this body for 2025 for 2026, and have $33,000 for downtown redevelopment work. And then also that we would consider the matching funds for the historic preservation grants recommendation that came from the Finance, Budget, and Personnel Committee that was pulled off the consent agenda on June 26th. Would consider that to be a match with the Visit Marshfield money and move forward with wrapping up that project of getting the historic signs purchased and installed. And with that, this is labeled as discretion of the council, and I put that recommendation before you for your discussion and consideration.
We have a motion by Alderman Varsho. Are there any seconds? Second by Alderman Giles. Alderman Dellis.
Can we know what the motion is, please?
The motion would be to approve the following actions: downtown grants, accept the $8,000 county award and have $33,000 available for projects, and approve the Finance, Budget, and Personnel recommendation to commit $4,675 in 2026 city budget funds to match Visit Marshfield's $4,675.
Alderman Giles. Thank you. Now, Alderman Dellis.
I just have a question about the $33,000. To be clear, what would that money be used for? Downtown businesses to do what?
Yeah, the way the grant program works, it's we talked about applying to the county, it's a dollar for dollar that we had to put up as a match. Well, when we make these grants to the downtown businesses, they have to put in that much or more for their projects. So oftentimes we'll get a request for maybe, I'll make this up, but $25,000 from somebody. They're looking at doing a project of maybe $75,000. They're looking for complementing their money with the city's money to be able to afford to do the renovation of the building, be it exterior, interior, or both. So we would have a pool of $33,000 to be able to award to applicants to go along with the money that they're putting in for their projects, which exceeds that, to try and get downtown work done. Yep.
Any other questions, comments? Seeing none. Oh, no. Alderman Spiros, right on the gun. Yes, ma'am.
Steve, I just have a question on the building revitalization. So, would we be able to take that $33,000 total and put that back? Would we be able to use that towards revitalization of the Weinbrenner building? And whoever comes along and picks that project or gets that project?
You know, I have to look back a little closer to the application that we made with the county because we were pretty specific about downtown buildings. And admittedly, Weinbrenner is effectively in our downtown area. Certainly the council's 25,000 could be used in that way if you see fit. I just have to ask the county whether or not that would fit with the application that we filed as far as the use of their $8,000. I would be glad to do that.
I would rather see it used for something like that, personally.
Okay. I think they'd probably be, I mean, the question comes up as far as, does the work need to be done? And I think, is it a business that pays taxes? And I think if that is going to be the case, then that would be, I would think, potentially a project, even though we're thinking about commercial retail at the time that we applied. So I really don't know the answer, but I'd be glad to investigate it.
Alderman Spiros?
Well, just as a follow-up, can I follow up with that?
Yes, ma'am.
So I also just was thinking too, so it's for revitalization or remodeling or redoing things. And would our senior center be downtown, considered downtown?
Well, it would, but
our basement needs revitalized. Our basement needs revitalized.
Yeah, I know, but I think at that point, we're getting a little far away from what they intended. I mean, this is economic development and, we're a non-tax paying entity. I think they expect it to be used for a purpose that is a business of some sort. That's why I say Weinbrenner may be a possibility, but I can't imagine our own Second City Community Center qualifying.
Okay. Thanks.
Yep.
Alderman Tompkins?
Thank you. This is just throwing this out there. It's related to the discussion, but it's sort of pushing the ideas. We could, if we do a matching grant with a downtown business owner for revitalization, we could also think about having a second matching grant if they're improving housing down there, especially if it's housing that would help with the missing middle, because a lot of the apartments that are downtown, they're not super great, and it would help our workers that actually are living in those apartments. I'm not saying we're doing that right now, I'm just throwing that out as an idea.
But the Building Revitalization Grant Program does actually reference upstairs potential renovations for residential, correct? I don't know that we've had any takers in that realm before, but it makes it very clear that that would be a potential use for those funds.
Alderman Dallas?
One last question about that. Is there a way to break up that 33,000 so that the businesses cannot use it on the interior of their business? I mean, do we have the right to say you can use it on the outside but not on the inside?
We'd have to rewrite the program, which I suppose we can do. And again, like I mentioned earlier, it began as a facade grant program for exterior improvements only. And then ultimately we decided that for some types of purposes to get them to do interior work, especially ones that provide food service. And as mentioned earlier, ones that are for upstairs residential, that work would increase the tax base of the building and perhaps provide some things that we'd like to see happen. That's when the program was amended to include some interior work. Again, anything's possible if you want to review if you notice the application, I think was actually in there in one of the attachments I put in there, and it talks about what's allowable now. If this body would like to revisit it, you could certainly do that.
Okay.
But I will tell you this, and I'm not trying to speak against what you're saying at all, but we've had a few projects lately where we've had a lot of interior work done that's greatly increased the tax base, the tax value of those properties as a result. So, I mean, I'm not saying that we need to keep doing that, but it's been a beneficial part of the program in the years that interior conversions have been allowed.
I guess my thought process on this whole thing, though, is how to spread the money out the farthest. So I have no problem putting money into the housing part just because we need it, but I'm not sure I could really go for doing the interior of somebody else's business, because I don't think that's our responsibility. I think that's the business owner or the building owners.
Yeah, and really, the cases in which we've done it have been significant renovations of some sort. In other words, it's not like somebody calls and says, you know what, I'd like to upgrade my electrical and my HVAC or something. It's been where a building has been either unused or substantially not usable, and or people have been moving into a building that's been vacant or whatever, and it needs work. So it's been more functionality at a high level than just maintenance or improvement projects.
Thank you, that makes more sense.
Alderman Fire?
This revitalization grant program has worked real well through the years, and we've done a lot with it. I would hate to see us dilute it down to start breaking it up. It works well. The only problem we ever have is never have enough money to cover the project. I don't think if you're gonna do something, you should do it the way the plan is set up and the way the program is, and let it just follow that out. I don't think you should dilute this, because it's a good program and it's worked well. I mean, since we started this, there's a lot of downtown businesses that look a lot better because we have this program. And I don't think we should dilute it at all.
Yeah, I agree. There was a report a few years ago, it needs to be updated, but it really showed that for every dollar we put into it, we get sometimes up to $3 worth of private investment. So that's leveraging funds from the private sector really well to make these projects happen. I think sometimes people forget that and think that we're just handing out money. They're investing a lot more than we're putting in.
Alderman O'Reilly?
Thank you. Just looking for a clarification. Alderman Spiros had mentioned the Weinbrenner building as a possible usage. If this passes as it is right now, would that still be an option? Or I guess I just want to clarify what this vote actually means.
But, you have two things. You have our current program guidelines that we've adopted that we can change however we want to. And that would be, for the $25,000, we could always review that. That goes back to what Councilmember Dellis just said too about facade grants versus interior conversions. The county's part, I'm actually going to run by them and say, because I spoke via Zoom at the first meeting that was held, and I made it pretty clear we're talking about downtown retail and commercial type structures. They may say, well, that's not what we really intended. I'll find out from them. But our portion, I think it's up to us if we want to make it possible for the Weinbrenner building to be included in the work that's typically been done right along and very close to Central Avenue. If you want to wait till another meeting to get more clarification on this, that's fine with me. Or I can always come back and say, look, I talked to the county and it's not going to fly or something. We can always revisit it, truthfully. It's really an internal decision, except for the fact that the county may have to think for a little bit on their part.
Can I follow up, please? Yeah, I guess I didn't get the answer I wanted. So can that still be visited if we approve this?
Based on today's guidelines for our 25,000, I'm questioning it, but I'm not reading it as we're speaking here.
It doesn't say anything about
Yeah, I mean, our program though does says housing conversion or expansion. So I mean, it appears very, very possible that would be allowable. I'm kind of on the fly here. I know we've never had anything quite like this, Mike, but if I'm reading, it says eligible improvements, it says, like I just said, converting underused space, and it talks about residential improvements, it talks about adding new residential units. It says on the second story or above, so the amount of money we'd be giving could be construed to be on an upper level. I guess I'd probably say yes, but I'm scratching my head, Josh. I really am. If you want to address this, you've been part of this program as long or longer than I have. It's a little bit of a push.
Yeah, and ultimately, I mean, the program guidelines are the cities to develop. We've been developing these. We've had these since 2009. They've evolved over the years. Like Steve said, when it was part of the TIF district, it was strictly a facade program because that's what TIF does. Is it improves exterior improvements that are visible from the street. Once that became funded by the Economic Development Board and the city, we did a downtown master plan and identified a need for, we needed to have new housing in upper units converted to housing. We want to attract retail, or we would attract restaurants and entertainment uses. And so that's when we decided we're going to modify the program to allow for those conversions with those funds. And I don't know the program. I mean, there's been small tweaks here and there. The reading at the guidelines, basically, the property has to be in TID 4. So I think the Weinbrenner's in TID 4. I can't remember exactly the boundary. And I don't think it can be strictly a residential property. So
It doesn't help that we're the owner either, I don't think, although ultimately we would transition the ownership.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Mike. The program has been fantastic. It's worked really well. We have leveraged a lot of private dollars in the downtown, improved the downtown immensely. If you look back at photos from 2008 of the downtown compared to what it looks like now, it's just a 180-degree difference. What I would suggest considering, if you're looking at wanting to use these funds strictly for Weinbrenner, do that then. Don't put it as part of this program, because then you're going to be competing with private entities that think that there's money, and then you say, well, we're going to actually use it for our own building. That doesn't seem fair to me. But
good point.
Are you satisfied, Mr. O'Reilly? As satisfied as you can be? Yes. Alderman Weigel?
I apologize.
Are there any deadlines that we need to be aware of as far as passing these motions?
No, in fact, I put discretion to the council because in my mind, I'm fine if you don't act on this tonight. We're not walking a deadline of any kind. I'm just making a recommendation that I think ultimately the use of the funds that we've already committed with the Building Revitalization Grant Program and taking the Finance, Budget, and Personnel Committee's recommendation before we got the Visit Marshfield contribution, and now partnering it with Visit Marshfield would be a good way to get these projects done. But I mean, we're not under any deadline or timeline at this point to do either one of these things.
Okay, thank you.
Alderman Dellis?
Can I just ask Attorney Wolfgram his thought on that question?
You know, I'm aware, at least generally, of that language. That's what you're asking, is the language. And I agree that that's broadly written so that it's pretty hard to say that you can't do that with respect to housing. That language is there. But then keep in mind the way that this was administered before, there's an approval process. So, you know, you certainly can exercise discretion, whichever body, it used to be a different body, in terms of a particular project or what's awarded. There's no, I guess the way I would say it is, restriction on how you exercise your discretion. All right. I mean, unlike you're giving somebody something, they're asking for it. So unlike some type of other right to use your property in a particular way, you have to follow certain procedural rules, including due process. With this, it's a little different. You're giving a gift, ultimately, of resources that are available for a particular reason. How you exercise that, you're going to be very limited in some kind of challenge if you do it one way or the other. Now, someone could say you did it unfairly, but that's not going to be a legal right that would be likely enforceable. So what I'm saying is you can probably administer this however you want it. You could literally, even though the policy says these things are eligible, just say, you know, we're not going to give it for that, and the reason being this, right? And that body is going to be pretty protected in terms of what its decision is. However, the way that's written, I think those things are on the table.
Thank you.
And admittedly, again, you could definitely split these into two pieces and treat the historic preservation request tonight if you feel comfortable moving forward with a recommendation or with a vote of some kind, and direct me to follow up with the county in terms of their view of our application, both their funding part and the project as a whole, if it becomes more like, you know, the Weinbrenner renovation, which is a great project, but if that would affect their view of what we submitted. I don't know that it will or won't.
Alderman Weigel, then Alderman Spiros.
Okay, I'll move to amend to split these into two votes. I know that's not the most eloquent way to do it.
Alderman Spiros?
A couple of things. Andrew, did you just make a motion?
I did, yes, to split it into two votes, into the historical preservation and then the, I'm blanking on it now, the,
Building Revitalization Grant Program.
For the historic district signs or something.
And we have a second to that motion?
So we don't have do we have a second?
Yes, we
No.
do.
Sorry.
Okay, so I just have a question if we have the motion in the second. I'm sorry, Steve, I think you did say this, but I didn't write it down. Is the $8,000 that this county agreed to for the building revitalization, is that a match grant or no?
It's a match. So I mean, theoretically, if you wanted to, with them giving us 8,000, we could, I suppose, talk to them about reducing our match to $8,000 as well. But they're offering to fulfill our $25,000 request by giving us only 8,000. As part of their cut down from the 1.1 million down to 320.
Okay. Yep, I just needed that clarified.
Yep.
I didn't remember what you said.
Yep.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor to split, and we have a second. Any other questions, comments? Please vote on splitting these items.
Mrs. Spiros?
Yes.
Mr. Rigel?
aye.
That motion passes. Now we will go to the first of the two. And someone would like to make a motion?
We have a motion on the table.
Pardon me?
We have a motion. He did that as an amendment.
Okay, we have a motion, and that would be for the full and the second.
His first part of that motion was the, downtown grant. That's the part you're looking at now.
Okay, we need a motion on the floor for the downtown grant, and Alderman Varsho? No, you did not.
I did not make that motion.
No, but he
No.
made the motion for the full.
You just made an amendment to split this into two. That was your amendment. So now
Mr.
we're on the original motion, and the original motion made by you, Mr. Varsho, and seconded by Mr. Giles, was to approve the downtown grant and then also the Visit Marshfield, or I'm sorry, the historic preservation signs. And the amendment was to split that into two. So the original motion is now to approve the downtown building revitalization grant program as amended. This is an amendment now to your original.
And then we're gonna do the second one after that?
That'll be a second separate motion.
So I'm not sure because they voted on the first motion. Now, do they vote on the second motion? No, because they're up right now.
Correct. What they're voting on is the amendment, which is because they approved the amendment. Mr. Rigel made the amendment. And now Mr. Varsho, we're back to the original motion as amended. And that original motion as amended is to vote on the downtown building revitalization grant program.
And Mr. Varsho, you're good with making that amended vote?
We're voting on the first. And
Yes,
As
yes.
amended, and I did make the first motion, so I understand what she's saying. This is voting on the very first section first, as amended.
Correct.
Correct.
And second, Alderman Giles? Yes. Alderman O'Reilly?
Sorry, clarification again. The original motion was for both of these, correct? Wasn't the amendment to change both of them? Isn't that also just a single step?
The amendment was to split this into two votes.
Okay,
By default, we go back to the first portion, which was
Gotcha.
the building revitalization.
okay, so which one is this?
Building revitalization.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Seeing none, please vote on the
Building revitalization.
building revitalization.
Mrs. Spiros?
No.
Mr. Rigel?
Aye.
That motion passes. Now we go on to the second motion, which is that also made by Alderman Varsho and Alderman Giles?
Gonna be a new one now.
Okay, thank you.
I apologize. No, that is the same one, but I do have to re-enter it.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor by Alderman Varsho and a second by Alderman Giles for the second part of the original motion. Gentlemen?
Yes.
Any other comments, questions? Seeing none, please vote.
Mrs. Sparrows?
Yes.
Mr. Rigel?
Aye.
That motion passes. Thank you. Request by council members Dellis and O'Reilly to consider recreating the Economic Development Board presented by Jen Dellis, Councilmember District Number 6.
I'm gonna make this short and sweet, but, my question is, basically, do we have options other than bringing the Economic Development Board back? Like, what are all of our options to cover that area is what I'm looking for. To anybody, I mean, it's open for discussion. Like, I want to know what anybody's opinion, like, what are our legal or
At the time that the Economic Development Board was disbanded back in the summer of 2024, what happened was, I mean, certainly some more things maybe fell on staff and its consultant to some degree, but basically the authority, you know, things started going to the council directly without any review and discussion by the Economic Development Board. So, which was not always, I mean, which was basically the case anyway, because the board never had any direct approval power. They made recommendations for approval of things to the council, whether it be, could be acquiring property, could be, you know, budget resolutions to spend money on certain things. But that final power is always vested in the council. So we just don't have that review body to look at and bake issues to bring forward. But otherwise, I mean, business has gone on. It's not like things have stopped happening. It's just been more things directly coming to where you're sitting right now. It's basically what's happened.
You okay?
Yeah, I just want to hear what everybody else has to say, to be honest.
Okay, Alderman Varsho?
So it was, well, myself and maybe a couple other aldermen, was not ideal to get rid of the Economic Development Board when we did. We had no options for what was going to happen afterwards. It was just basically, oh, let's vote on this, let's get rid of it. It got voted down and boom, they were gone. Now we have nothing. We haven't had nothing. There was no option, there was no backup, there was nothing presented to us that if we got rid of this, we will do this. And now we've been sitting here for months and months and months, relying on Mackey, which they do a great job trying to do what they can do, relying on Visit Marshfield, relying on Main Street Marshfield. A great presentation that she put together tonight, but we've had nothing. And we still have nothing. And the staff is understaffed to get us anything. So at this point right now, unless somebody wants to put through the work to try to figure out what we can do, we are going to stay with nothing. It's just as simple as that. And you weren't here, and it's disappointing that you know, it was a good committee. They did good things, but it was axed, and we didn't have any backup plan for it. And I know I talked to a couple other aldermen regarding that at the time, and it was disappointing at the time. But now we sit here with nothing. Thanks.
Alderman O'Reilly?
Thank you. Yeah, when I shot the email to you, Steve, as a second to request this, I think what you were mentioning is what I was actually looking for. And I think I kind of expressed that in the email is, I didn't know we were going to have an RDA presentation at that point. I didn't know anything about this coming up. So that's one of the options. That's awesome that something's moving forward with it. But I'd like to know what else do we have for options? I mean, this has been gone a long time. Yeah. We haven't had the economic development happening that we definitely could if we have some body in place or some method in place. Like Mr. Varsho mentioned, it just, here we sit with, and I completely disagreed with the way it was done, but I was not sold that that was the answer either in the old form that the Economic Development Board was. We haven't really heard what can we do? What are options legally that can take place? Like I said, glad we saw this presentation and that's an option now, but is there anyone that can give us other ideas on what other communities are doing, how they're structuring them? If you have any ideas outside the realm of what other communities are doing, something needs to happen with economic development, and we all acknowledge that, but it's just been silent for a long time. So that's kind of what the basis was.
That's a great question, Mike. But one of the things that's really hindered the success of the board in its final 3 years, or 2.5 years, whatever it was when Josh Miller left, and he was the development services director, they really didn't have the kind of staff assistance that they really needed. I mean, I filled in to the best of my ability, but I think you guys know that I wear quite a few hats, so I wasn't able to maybe be the lead staff person that they needed. That was not a help to that body, in 2022 through 2024. So, I mean, I think if you go back to, we talked about the recommendation that Kristen made for an RDA, almost as significant as the recommendation she made to find some way to get a director on board for that department. I mean, without that, it's hard to picture a lot of things working because you need somebody leading the charge every day when they show up here at 7:30. As far as what other options there are, when the Economic Development Board was operating, they themselves, actually Bill Senholz, who was the chair at the time, came up with the idea of an economic development corporation, which would have been a private nonprofit, 501c3 or C6 or whatever, that would operate outside of city government. It would work with city government in some ways, but it would be apart from that and be able to do things like, hopefully, ultimately after getting themselves organized, to find venture capital, and maybe find angel investors and help work on the private side to pull projects together, work with the city to perhaps create TIF districts or expand TIF districts to help with a financing source for these projects, but it would be a group of people that would be probably very beneficial, but not part of our structure, our organization. That's one idea. I suspect that there are probably other communities, Mike, that have something similar to economic development boards, because the reason we did the economic development board in the first place was because at your meetings, if you look at your agendas, they're filled with random things, resolutions and ordinances and complaints from citizens and any number of things. And so what we say the most important thing is for this community, and for most communities in Wisconsin would say this, economic development, it's relegated to very little time on public agendas, if we're honest. It was a thought that the Economic Development Board would be able to make that their full mission, to bring ideas to bear, get special guests to come and talk, come up with plans, purposes, projects, get them going, bake them, and bring them through you for what they need for approvals with respect to land or financing or whatever. And I think that maybe happened better in the early days of the Economic Development Board and then tailed off over time. I personally think this is just me and you can do what you want with it. I don't think I would decide anything about the Economic Development Board until you decide what you want to do with the presentation you got tonight. Whether you want to start adopting pieces, whether you want to throw it in the garbage can or whatever. I think that's probably the starting point, is to see what are we trying to create and how would an EDB or an RDA, for that matter, fit into that picture, and then embrace it and then begin to run with it in some direction. That's my 2 cents.
Alderman Dallas?
We were talking about earlier about that thing. Is it a possibility that we could maybe, like the CDA has all that power already to be able to do some of that stuff? Can we maybe work with another group with the CDA to bring in a economic development group and then run like through the CDA so that the CDA, who is amazing at housing, obviously, can be more utilized to their full potential? Is that an option? I mean, there's grants out there that I know that we could qualify for, large grants out there. But the problem right now is, even if somebody applied for them, who would distribute that money? Who do we use to get those funds accomplished, or those projects accomplished? Could we do it through the CDA until we figure out a better solution? Do we reform the Economic Development Board with new people and a new lease on life, so to speak, on that? Can we do it straight through the council? That's what I'm looking for. Like, what are our actual options? And I get the presentation that she gave us today. That's great. It's all good. But again, like, we need other options. I want to know what we can do as a whole versus we have now this option and we have the board back. You know, there's got to be something else. And we don't have that economic developer person. We already all know, everybody in the city of Marshfield agrees we need an economic development director. But until that happens, we need something to bring everybody together.
Yeah, I think the common denominator, and this plays into what Mike Fire said earlier about what the CDA could do if they had staff. You said resources, I think you mean largely staff. And, that's the common denominator. We don't have a development services director. We have anyone since Josh left. And a CDA, I mean, they're a game group. They work really hard. But, when Mary James Mark was here and now when Carol Kerper's leading the charge, they would need more help in order to be community development leaders. And so that becomes the common denominator, finding someone to do the work. An RDA, ultimately, I mean, let's face it, an RDA isn't going to magically succeed without someone working at least part-time on their behalf. So I think that's the key. Whatever avenue you end up with, is that we need someone to actually be doing the day-to-day legwork to make things happen, to help bring developments together, to help looking at opportunities for grants, for new development options.
Alderman Werman?
Okay. I'm going to start by saying I agree with Steve that I think we need to wait to do anything with this until we talk through strategic planning. Otherwise, we're just wasting our time. But I also want to go back to the board itself. Part of my problem with the board, because I was one of the people that voted to disband the board, was it became a platform for bullying and control issues. It didn't become about economic development. And I would challenge anybody here to go back and look at every meeting and find how we are less productive in economic development now than we were when that board was here. Because we have not changed anything. Everything still comes to the council. It just gets presented here instead of going to EDB and then coming here and presenting it here. So nothing has changed. So in my opinion, it was just a middle manager, and that was part of the reason the board was not effective anymore. So I do agree we need something in place, but I think the smartest thing to do is go through strategic planning, figure out how we want to invest in economic development, and determine from there, because obviously I think the RDA plan is great, but we are already in a budget situation where I don't know where we would have 150 to 200K plus benefits for employees to be able to move through a process of actually supporting that. So it's a great idea on paper, but there's a lot of discussion that needs to happen as a result.
Alderman Varsho?
I'm going to agree with Steve. We need a leader at City Hall that's going to lead them before any group can be formed or developed or brought forth. I won't approve anything. I'll vote against everything if we don't have somebody at City Hall that's going to lead a group. We just can't, because Mr. Werman's right. Without somebody that's going to lead them, it brings us down the rabbit hole of what we got rid of them for in the first place. Not that we liked it. And I agree with him. I wanted a backup plan before we got rid of them, but he was right. We didn't have a leader then. So without a leader, it's not something we should bring back at this time.
Yeah, and can I add to that for a second? Yeah, I mean, I've said this before to some of you individually. Maybe I've said it collectively to you at some point. I haven't done a survey on this, but I don't think you'd find many communities in Wisconsin of 19,000 that don't have an economic or a community development director. I mean, and truthfully, we have a great group. I'm so proud of the people that we get together. We got together again this morning. Jennifer, Josh Moritz, Lois is part of that team, and we deal with opportunities we have, but we're generally reactive. We're generally, following up on things that are brought to us as best we can. And it's an outstanding group, but it's not the same as having a person here 40 hours a week. And you're never going to get past a certain level without that. So budgetarily, talking with Jennifer, talking with Jordan and others, I mean, making it work in the budget is going to be a challenge, but at some level, a person of that position is needed. You just have to have it in so many ways and for so many reasons.
Okay, Alderman Dellis, then Alderman Fire, then Alderman Ragel, then Alderman Spiros.
I just want to say thanks, guys, because I honestly wasn't here when the Economic Development Board was I didn't see any of it, to be honest. So I'm not asking to bring it back. I just wanted to start talking about what options we have to bridge that gap, just so we're clear on that. But thank you for your input. I really appreciate it.
Go ahead, Al.
I just want to mention, because of the terminology that was used, a couple of you have said legal options. And, this is not something that requires a legal analysis. you have had a presentation, you know what an EDB board does, and there's been references about how you use the EDB board. That's also a choice that this body can make. So when you say legal options, they're almost unlimited, right? You could create a separate committee to sort of filter this stuff to you, and it wouldn't have to be involving any particular person, member of this body, member of another body, whatever the heck it is, and come back and try to, give you options to try to do certain things for economic development. I think you're in the right place if you're going down the path of setting up staff that can help support you. But I think ultimately, one of the reasons you're having this question is because of a shortage of staff problem. But just so you're clear, when I hear you say that, I feel, it's incumbent on me to address what is, being presented as legal options. But those options are so broad that I think you got to rely on staff and rely on the information that you have. And if there is a legal question about one or something that might be able to be done, I can, kind of join in on that. But I think your options are pretty darn broad. And really the question is, what limitations would be put on them would be a bigger question. And you'd have to almost have something on the table before I'd say, oh, you might not be able to do that. Okay?
Alderman Fire?
I think when we voted to eliminate the EDB board, I think we were all under the impression that we were going to be able to fill Josh's shoes in a hurry. Well, I guess that didn't work out so well. I thought that we would find a director. I thought we really would. And all of a sudden, here we're, 2 years, 3 years down the road, we haven't got it. When we eliminated the board, we did it because they weren't getting along and it just wasn't productive any way you look at it. I attended a couple of those meetings and it just wasn't very nice. So I guess we're at a crossroad. We're left to decide what we want to do, and I hope we find a director sooner than later because we really do need one. And then a board will be easy to put together.
Alderman Weigel?
Thank you. I'll keep this brief. I mean, the common denominator here is no matter how you split it based on the presentation today or anything else, it's economic development director. I mean, at the end of the day, it's what it is. And I think before we get too far ahead of ourselves here, we need to lock that position down, and that'll open up further doors and give us options as to what we want to do. And not only that, but get their input as well. So I think that's just the base step before we even get ahead of ourselves here as far as committees, boards, et cetera. We need to get the position filled, period.
Alderman Spiros? Okay. If we're done with the conversation, move on to item R, response to... Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm just going to kind of echo what everybody else said, and I unfortunately won't be at the strategic planning meetings, but I do want to say that, yes, it doesn't matter how many ideas are brought to us or how many groups out there are fighting for control of this economic development, because we're seeing a lot of that too. Without the key player, who I believe should be a city employee and should be housed in City Hall and should be the driver of anything that we do with any of the other groups. But I do, and I think that should happen first, but I do hope that at the strategic planning meetings that we do come up with a second plan, a next best plan, because we have been trying to hire an economic development director for several years and we have not been successful. So what if that takes us another several years? So I think that, ideally, yes, we need that person that's in control. And whether that, I mean, the only other time I was sort of open to it was when the utility was talking about hiring an economic development director, which I could have gotten on board with, I think pretty much 100%. But I think, everything else is just, there's nobody to lead all of these groups that want to take over economic development. So I think that person's a key figure, but I do think that it would behoove us to try to talk about other options in case it takes us 2 or 3 more years to find an economic development director.
I think that's a wise comment on your part. We talk about the idea of not having an economic or community development director as if it's entirely about funding, getting in the annual budget, being able to make the position work budgetarily. That's a big part of it, and that's a commitment I'd love to see this council make and us make in the 2026 budget. Having said that, you're right, recruitment is still an issue. I mean, we've had other positions that have been vacant. Also, trying to get people to come to the city and work for us has been a challenge. As other employers have found, other municipalities have found this. I just went to a meeting up in Rib Mountain a couple weeks ago and heard other communities saying the exact same thing. They're having a hard time finding people for key positions. So you're right, a backup plan or a fallback plan is not a bad idea.
We're all done now? Thank you. We will move on to item R, respond to request by Councilmember Tompkins regarding sanitary sewer alternatives for land located near the northwest corner of West McMillan Street / St. Joseph's Avenue, presented by Mark Caviglia, wastewater superintendent.
Good evening. I'm here just to talk about some sewage options for the property at northwest corner of St. Joe's and McMillan Street. Now, this is just a very basic, only from a physical standpoint of what could work. It's not from a zoning, permitting, planning, engineering cost standpoint. It's just what is available. So basically, you can have connection to city sanitary sewer. Within city limits, that's always best. Gravity is the simplest if you have it available. If it's not available easy, you can pump it up a hill to where it is available by gravity. Also, not connected to city sanitary sewer if it's not available. You can have private on-site wastewater treatment system that would have to be permitted through the county. Or you could have a private on-site wastewater holding tank system, just very basic, where it gets hauled away to a treatment. First depiction I have up is a gravity connection. Now, the property in question, there is, on a physical standpoint, there is a point about 15 feet elevation lower than the property in question. Problem is there's a gap between there that y'all can find an answer for if that's the route you go, but physically it would work, and that would be the preferred method. Wherever you have a gravity sanitary main, it's going to flow by itself. There's no other instruments or pumps or anything involved in the system. From that point that I show at the intersection of Prairie Drive and Sunflower Street in the Prairie Run development, that would be the lowest point and the closest point to get to. There looks like there was intention of easements going to the east from that point, but that's all. I'll elaborate on that. There is a gap there that would have to be overcome, obviously. But from that point, there's 8-inch PVC sanitary sewer main that goes through a field to Lincoln Avenue, and there it goes south, again, along an 8-inch PVC main that upsizes to ultimately 18-inch lined main down Lincoln, where it flows to our Lincoln lift station. And that has the capacity, and it's in fairly good shape. There's a planned rehabilitation of the electronics out there in a year or two, and also the generator, but the infrastructure, the backbone is good in that direction. If that didn't work, another option would be to have a pump station on the property in question. It would have to pump up to McMillan. The nearest place and the most logical place would be at a manhole. I'm not sure how many feet, a couple hundred feet to the west of intersection of St. Joe's and McMillan. From that point, it would flow down an 8-inch PVC sanitary main almost to Veterans Parkway. There it turns into lined 8-inch, crosses under, goes down Lincoln, and then the same route we just talked about, ultimately to Lincoln Lift Station. And that infrastructure, the backbone is appropriate and good shape. Private on-site wastewater treatment system. If the lots are large enough and the county permits it, this would be a viable alternative. It needs bigger lots, obviously, for setbacks and the footprint that's required. but it would involve a treatment tank or a septic tank that breaks down the waste. It would flow to a small pump tank or a dose tank that then would pump it up to a distribution network in the ground. Likely would require some type of an engineered system that would be above ground with the appropriate media. There's several different methods that this can be done. But again, this would be through the county and through the city both to have permitted. Simplest method is a holding tank. I'm not sure if that's a preferred but it is a viable option. That's very simple. The waste flows from each home into each individual home's holding tank where it's held until it's full, and it's hauled away for proper treatment to a treatment plant. Basically, those are the four options that I can think of, and I hope that answers the question from previous meeting.
Alderman Tompkins?
First of all, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
So our holding tanks, are they ever inspected to make sure they don't leak?
The county oversees the emptying. There is a permit that has to be done yearly for either septic or holding tanks. I'm more familiar with Wood County. I'm not so familiar with Marathon County that this would be within.
Okay.
But there is permitting and requirements to maintain them, yes.
And then for holding tanks, the individual property owner needs to hire someone to come and empty them and bring them to your facility. Is that correct?
Yes, bring them to treatment plant or properly dispose of it. Not necessarily to our treatment plant, but we would be the closest, so it would be likely that it would come to us, but not required.
Okay.
Yes.
Do you happen to know, just off the top of your head, how much a private property owner would pay a year? Like, how often are people pumping these tanks?
All depends on the size of the family unit, what kind of water savings
Lots of
methods there are.
variables. Okay.
My guess is monthly, and I think it can run close to $200 per empty. But
Okay.
I think there's others in the audience that probably have more specific knowledge of that, but if you're curious. I live right in town, so I don't.
We have a holding tank at our house, and a family of 5, we probably get it pumped once a month for just under $200.
All right, thank you. Those are my questions. Thanks so much.
Any other questions, comments? From information only, we'll go on to item S, suggested items for further agendas. Alderman Curran?
I'd like to bring up for the next meeting the airport runway extension that was pulled off the CIP. I think there's some discussion that needs to be had because we might be in violation of federal regulations on upkeep.
Anything else? Seeing none. Item T, adjourn to closed session under Wisconsin statute, chapter 19.851E, deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session. Development assistance for project at West McMillan Street / St. Joseph's Avenue. And the second is possible disposition of city-owned property adjacent to 1700 Lemley Avenue. We have a motion by Alderman Varsho, second by Alderman Werman to go into closed session. Please vote.
Mrs. Spiros?
Yes.
Mr. Rigel?
Aye.
We're in closed session. We'll have a 5